Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave and today we're going to be taking a look at the Andalusian chord progression, or the Andalusian cadence. This is something you've probably come across before, so at the very least it'll be nice to put a name to something that you already know. But what I want to do is show you the progression and then show you a few different ways you can play it, different ways of approaching the progression, because these ideas, I'm going to apply them in the context of the Andalusian progression, but you could apply them with basically any chord progression. So really there's two parts to this video, is to show you the Andalusian progression and also to show you some ideas for how to approach chord progressions in general. So without further ado, what is the Andalusian chord progression? Well, the Andalusian chord progression is a progression in the minor key. If we look at the chords in a minor key, we've got these chords. So let's take E minor as an example. So looking at the chords here, we've got an E minor, an F sharp diminished, a G major, an A minor, a B minor, a C major, a D major. If we extend those out to sevens, we have E minor 7, F sharp half diminished, G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D dominant 7. The Andalusian chord progression will go from the 1 chord to the flat 7 chord to the flat 6 chord to the 5 chord. So in the key of E minor, we'll be going from an E minor, which is the 1 chord, to a D major, which is the flat 7 chord, then to a C major, which is the flat 6 chord, and then finish on the 5 chord, which is B minor. Sounds like this. That is the Andalusian chord progression. Finish on an E minor there. But what you're not really hearing there is sort of like the unique selling point of the Andalusian chord progression. That's what's happening with the root notes. So if you think we're going from an E minor to a D major to a C major to a B minor, what we've got is the root note is moving from an E to a D to a C to a B. Now when I played the chord progression there, I was just using like open position chords. The idea there being that I can keep my hand in roughly the same part of the neck, which is fine. Those chords are musically correct, but it doesn't really enforce the whole bass moving down diatonically. What I could do is look at playing that using movable chords. So say play an E minor shape up here, then go down to D major, down to C major, down to B minor. And that's got much more movement, and you can hear the way that the bass is moving, the way that the root note is going down diatonically. So the first thing to think about just generally with chord progressions is what inversions are you using and how are you wanting to lead the listener's ear? Are you wanting something that you're using just chords that are generally in a similar sort of voice, so you're hearing the underlying harmony moving but there's not big jumps? Are you wanting something where you're wanting to take the listener's ear on a bit more of a journey, the way that we did there where we were moving chords down, so E minor shape, change to a major shape and move down, that major shape move down and then change back to a minor shape and move down the neck. So you've got a very linear sort of movement in the progression. Either way is valid. It's about what you want to achieve in terms of a listening experience. So what we did there was we played that just with basic triad derived chords, simple minor and major type chords. We could look at using other types of chords, so we could add a note in and use a 7th chord. So we could, instead of playing an E minor, we could play an E minor 7. So you hear the difference in tone. Yeah, that's got a flat 7th in there. Just adds a little bit of extra colour. And we could do that for the whole progression. We'd start with an E minor 7 chord as the 1 chord, move down to a D dominant 7th, then a C major 7, then a B minor 7. So that works in two ways. It's adding a bit more harmonic flavour because we've got more notes in the chord. You know, we've got 4 different notes in each chord rather than just 3. But the other thing is we've got 2 types of major chord here. We've got the D major and C major, but the D major has a dominant 7th chord on it, which has that sound, and C major chord has a C major 7, which is a different sound again, dominant 7th, major 7th. Yeah, there's more difference there than just the fact that the chords moved a couple of semitones down, and that gives us a more interesting chord progression. Now let's look at that last chord in the progression, the B minor 7, the 5 chord. That is diatonically correct. It's got 4 notes in it. It's got a B, a D, an F sharp and an A 1, flat 3, 5 and flat 7. But what we could do, and this is quite a common substitution to do in a minor key, is rather than playing the minor 7 chord on the 5th degree, play a dominant 7th chord. So we raise that D natural up to a D sharp. So instead of playing a flat 3rd, we play a natural 3rd, a major 3rd. Now D sharp technically does not belong in the key of E minor. It belongs in the key of E harmonic minor. So you can think of this chord as sort of being on loan from the harmonic minor, if you like. It's a chord substitution from the harmonic minor. And that dominant 7th chord, it sounds less settled, it's a little bit more dissonant, it's not as resolved sounding as the minor 7 chord. Minor 7, dominant 7th, you know, that kind of wants to go somewhere. So it's really useful to play that chord, because if you want to take the listener around again, go back to the 1 chord and repeat the progression, or just go back to the 1 chord and finish the progression. That chord there doesn't want to settle, it wants to move on somewhere else. So let's see how that progression sounds using the 5 dominant 7 chord. So you can hear there, when we played that dominant 7th chord, it didn't sound as resolved. It wanted to go somewhere, so the first time around, it was a nice way to loop back to play the progression again. And then at the end, it was a nice way to say, right, we need to go somewhere, and we've settled on that E minor chord to finish the progression. So there's a useful thing you can think about doing in a minor key, is substituting a dominant 7th chord for a minor 7 chord on the 5th degree. And you don't have to play either or. You could play the diatonic minor 7th chord and then the borrowed from the harmonic minor dominant 7th chord. So you almost like lead the listener into a false sense of security about being all comfortable and diatonic, and then you throw in that outside chord. So hearing both the B minor 7 and the B dominant 7, both equally valid and useful, and you can hear the difference in sounds. It's different ways of playing basically the same chord progression. The basic variation there from the original chord progression, where we were playing triad derived chords, was we added in the 7th degree, we're playing 4-note chords. So you could basically play any diatonic chord on any of those, on any degree. So in the case of the E minor chord, you could play E minor, you could play E minor 7, but you've got all the extensions and all the other options, you know, E minor 9, E minor 11, E minor 13, adding in sus2, sus4s, all that sort of thing. Anything that belongs to that, like that E, that 1 chord family, you could play likewise on the D, the C and the B. The B was a little bit more interesting because we had all the diatonic options, but we've also got the ones based around the the borrowed dominant 7 chord as well. And you've got other options, I guess you could play. How about, I don't know, 7 add 11 chords? Lots and lots of options. If you're up with your chord theory and you understand chord construction and all the different chords available, then you can take a progression and really go to town and make it a bit more elaborate using different types of chords from each family. So that was making chords more complex. How about making chords more basic? Let's just go for the good old power chord. I'm going to need a little bit of dirt for this, I think. So let's go to the dirty channel on the amp. You could play that progression just with power chords. Sounds very basic, what you want from a power chord. You're just hearing the root and the fifth, but because we're playing power chords moving down in series, you're really getting the sound of the way the bass note's moving just diatonically down through the scale. Now I chose E minor for this particular example because of the power chord use case. Because we're playing in the key of E minor, so I've got an E power chord here. I've also got an open E string, and it's quite effective if you've got a chord progression where your bottom string is available, and that is the string is the note of the key. So on a regular 6 string in regular tuning, it's going to be an E, playing in the key of E or E minor. But you could be in drop D, in which case this apply to the key of D or D minor. You see what I mean? But adding that bass note in over all of the chords, so that really fattens things out, and what you're actually hearing there is basically an E over an E bass note, so root position, E power chord, then D power chord over E, C power chord over E, and B power chord over E. And to be honest, you could use that over E way of playing things with the 7 chords as well, I guess. You could play the E minor 7 over an E bass note, D dominant 7 over the E bass note, C major 7 over the E bass note, E minor 7 over the E bass note. It's just yet another way of approaching the chord progression. So that's about it really. What I wanted to cover in this video is show you what the Andalusian chord progression is. It's a 1, flat 7, flat 6, 5 progression in a minor key, and show you also ways you could approach that progression and playing it, either as triad derived chords, 7 derived chords, extended chords, different chord shapes, playing it as power chords, playing it as chords over a bass to reinforce the tone of the key. All valid options. Okay, so that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found that useful and interesting. If you did, please click the like button down there. If you really enjoyed it and you want to see other videos that I post onto the channel, then please click the subscribe button, which is down there as well somewhere. And click the bell icon, that way you get notified anytime I upload any new videos onto the channel. You're welcome to leave a comment. YouTube's a bit rubbish at notifying me when people do comment on videos though, so if there's something specific you want to ask me, whether it's about music theory, guitar playing, guitar equipment, anything at all, you're better off going here, fill that form in, and that way the question comes direct to me and I can get around to answering it in a future video. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.